The chandelier in the east wing of the Hanseo estate had not been cleaned in 11 days, and Junwoo Baek noticed it the way other men noticed gunfire. He noticed it because his wife, Sora, had stopped climbing the ladder to wipe the crystal herself, and because the woman who had replaced her in that small ritual, a junior secretary named Mirai Han, had begun lingering on the second-floor landing as if she belonged there. He noticed it the night the rain hit the marble roof so hard the staff turned the music up in the kitchen, and a single sharp sound, a gasp, a heel skidding, a body folding wrong, cut through the orchestral hum like a knife through silk. He was standing in the security room when the monitor on the far left showed the staircase. Sora was 7 months pregnant. She was wearing the pale gray house dress he had bought her in Busan, the one with the loose sleeves she liked because her wrists swelled in the evenings. She was holding the banister with one hand and a small glass of warm barley tea in the other. Mirai was 3 steps above her, smiling the way a person smiles when they think no camera is watching. Then Mirai's hand came forward, flat and quick between Sora's shoulder blades. The glass broke first, then Sora. Junwoo did not shout. He had not shouted in 19 years. He stood, set down the cigarette he had not yet lit, and walked out of the security room with the slow, even pace of a man who had just decided exactly how the next 2 years of his life would unfold. The footage kept rolling behind him. On the screen, Mirai crouched beside Sora and pressed a hand to her mouth, performing horror for the cameras she did not know existed. Junwoo had the only key to that hard drive. He had built the room himself, after his father was poisoned at a dinner table in 2009, and he trusted no one with the wires. By the time he reached the staircase, the staff had already gathered. Mirai was crying without tears. Sora was conscious, barely, her hand cupped over the curve of her belly, as if she could hold the children inside by sheer will. Blood threaded down the marble in thin, deliberate lines, like ink finding the grain of paper. "Don't move her," Junwoo said, kneeling. His voice was quiet enough that the maids leaned in. "Call Dr. Yun, the private wing. No hospital records. No press." "Junwoo," Sora whispered. Her lips were gray. "The baby." "Babies," he corrected gently, because the second ultrasound had shown 3 heartbeats, and they had agreed, only a week ago in the garden, to keep that number a secret until the 7th-month celebration. 3, remember? 3. She tried to smile. Her eyes rolled back. Mirai was still kneeling on the step above, her hand still pressed to her mouth, her shoulders shaking in a rhythm that almost convinced the cook. Junwoo looked at her once. Only once. He looked at her the way a man looks at a debt he intends to collect in full, with interest, in a currency she did not yet know existed. Then he turned to his head of security, a wiry man named Tae-hoon, who had been with the family since the harbor years. "Take Miss Han to the green guest room," Junwoo said. "Lock the door from the outside. She is not to use a phone. She is not to speak to anyone. She is not to know what I saw." Tae-hoon's eyes flickered to the camera mounted in the ceiling above the staircase. He understood. He always understood. "And the footage, sir? Copy it. 3 drives, 1 in the safe, 1 with my lawyer, 1 with me." Junwoo lifted Sora into his arms as if she weighed nothing, though his knees almost gave at the weight of her and the 3 small lives she carried. "And Tae-hoon, if she dies tonight, Mirai does not leave that room alive. If she lives, Mirai does not know I saw. Not for 2 years." Tae-hoon nodded once. "2 years, sir?" "2 years," Junwoo said. "I want her to believe she won." The private wing of the estate smelled of antiseptic and the lavender oil Sora kept on her nightstand. Dr. Yun arrived in 17 minutes, his coat wet, his hands already gloved. He worked through the night. Junwoo stood in the doorway and did not sit, did not eat, did not blink for what felt like hours. At 4:11 in the morning, Dr. Yun came out with the careful face of a man who had learned to deliver news to dangerous men. "She lives," he said. "Barely. The bleeding has stopped." "The children?" Dr. Yun hesitated. Junwoo had known him since they were boys. That hesitation was its own sentence. "We will know in 3 days," Dr. Yun said. "The trauma was significant. But the heartbeats are still there. All 3. Junwoo closed his eyes. For the first time since the chandelier, he allowed himself to breathe. "Then we have a problem," he said. "Sir? She cannot stay here. If she stays, Mirai will finish what she started. If Mirai knows the children survived, she will not stop." Dr. Yun lowered his voice. "What are you asking me to do?" "I'm asking you to lie," Junwoo said. "I'm asking you to write a death certificate for a woman who is alive, and 3 for children who have not yet been born." Dr. Yun did not flinch. He had operated on Junwoo's father in a basement in 2009. He had carried secrets heavier than this. And then? Then I send her somewhere no one will look. A small island, a small house, a small name. And in 2 years, when the children are walking, and Mirai is comfortable, and the family believes I am a widower who never recovered, my wife will come home through the front door, with 3 children in her arms, and Mirai will see them on the staircase where she pushed her. "That is not a plan," Dr. Yun said softly. "That is a verdict." "It is both," Junwoo said. He walked back into the room. Sora was awake, just barely, her hand resting on her belly. He sat on the edge of the bed and took her fingers in his. Her wedding ring, a thin band of brushed platinum with a single line of jade inlaid along the inside, was still on her finger. He had given it to her on a rainy afternoon in a bookstore in Jeonju, before he had any of this, before the towers and the harbor and the men who answered to his name. "Soraya," he said. "Listen to me carefully. You are going to die tonight. On paper, in the newspaper, in the family register, in Mirai's ears." She blinked slowly. She had always been quicker than the men around her gave her credit for. "And then?" "Then you are going to live," he said, "somewhere quiet, with a different name. And you are going to raise our children where no one can reach them. And in 2 years, when they are old enough to hold your hand on a staircase, you are going to come home." "And you?" she whispered. "I am going to mourn you," he said, publicly, loudly. "I am going to drink at the right funerals, and weep at the right graves. I am going to let Mirai believe she has won. I am going to let her into this house, into my schedule, into my mornings. I am going to let her think she is the new Mrs. Beck, and I am going to smile at her every day for 730 days. Sora's eyes filled, but her voice did not shake. "Why? Because if I kill her tonight, the family she comes from will burn this house and everyone in it. Because her uncle controls the shipping permits in Incheon, and her brother sits 2 seats from the prosecutor general. Because I cannot protect you and the children if I move now. But in 2 years, I will have every permit, every signature, every witness. And then she will fall down a staircase too. Just not the same kind." Sora was quiet for a long time. Outside, the rain had stopped. A single bird had begun to sing in the wisteria, the way it did every dawn, indifferent to the family inside. "Promise me one thing," she said. "Anything. On the day I come home, do not let me see her face before my children do. Let them see her first. Let them see the woman who tried to take them. I want them to know what their father protected them from." He kissed her forehead. He did not promise with words. He nodded once, the way men nodded in his world, when a promise was worth more than air. By morning, the obituary was being typed. The funeral was held in the rain 3 days later, at a hillside cemetery outside Gapyeong. The casket was closed. The Hanseo family elders attended in matching black, and the press were kept behind a low stone wall. Junwoo wore the same suit he had been married in, because Sora had once said, in a careless moment, that she liked the way the lapels sat on his shoulders. He stood at the grave for 40 minutes after everyone else had gone. Mirai waited in the car. She had worn a black dress that was a half shade too fashionable, and pearl earrings that Sora had once admired in a magazine. When he finally came down the hill, Mirai stepped out of the car with her umbrella and held it over his head as if she had been doing it for years. "Junwoo," she said softly, "you shouldn't be alone tonight." He looked at her. He let her see only the grief. He kept the rest behind his teeth. "No," he said, "I shouldn't." She moved into the East Wing within a month. He gave her the small office overlooking the garden, the one Sora had used for her embroidery. He let her redecorate it. He let her hang a mirror where Sora's loom had stood. He let her rest her hand on his arm at dinners, and lean into him at funerals, and whisper into his ear at galas. He let her believe she was winning, slowly, the way a cat believes it is stalking a man who is, in fact, watching it from a window. He did not touch her. Not once. He told her in a low, broken voice over a glass of whiskey on the 82nd night of his widowhood that he could not yet, that grief had hollowed him, that he needed time. Mireille understood time. Mireille had patience, the way predators have patience. She waited. She decorated. She charmed his mother. She learned the names of the staff. She moved her clothes, one drawer at a time, into the dressing room beside his. Meanwhile, on a small island off the southern coast called Maimul Do, a woman who had once been Sora Bayek and was now on paper a widowed schoolteacher named Onhai Ji, was giving birth to 3 children in a clinic the size of a kitchen, with Dr. Yun's younger sister at her side. The first was a girl. Sora named her Hanul, Sky, because she had cried the moment she saw daylight. The second was a boy. She named him Baram, Wind, because he had been born too fast for the doctor to catch properly, slipping into the world like weather. The third was a girl, smaller than her siblings, quiet, watchful. She named her Bora, the deep purple just before night, because she had been the one who fought hardest in the womb, who had survived the staircase that her brother and sister had nearly died on. Junwoo received the news through a coded line. A single sentence, in the voice of an old woman selling dried squid on the harbor radio. The 3 lanterns have been lit. He was sitting at his father's desk when he heard it, with Mireille across the room arranging white lilies in a vase. He did not change his expression. He did not breathe differently. He simply opened the top drawer, took out a small leather notebook, and wrote 3 short words in the margin: sky, wind, twilight. He closed the drawer. "Are you all right, darling?" Mireille asked without turning. "Yes," he said. "I was just thinking about the weather." The 2 years moved with the slow cruelty of a tide. Junwoo flew to Mayamuldo 4 times a year, always under the cover of business trips to Jeju, always with Taehoon clearing the route. He held Hanul on his shoulders the first time she laughed. He watched Baram take his first steps in a courtyard full of mandarin trees, his small feet wobbling on stones polished smooth by 100 years of fishermen. He sat on the floor with Bora, the quiet one, who would not speak until she was nearly 2, and who, when she finally did speak, said his name first. Appa. Father. As if she had been saving the word. Sora aged in those 2 years, the way mothers age when they are alone. There were silver strands at her temple now. Her hands were rougher. She had been tending a small garden behind the house, growing perilla and chili and the small white radishes she liked in soup. She wore her wedding ring on a chain around her neck, hidden beneath her blouse. She did not ask on his visits how Mireille was. She did not ask whether the staircase had been replaced. She asked instead about the wisteria, whether it had bloomed that spring, whether the birds still sang at dawn. "It bloomed," he told her. "The bird still sings. Everything is waiting." On the nights he could not be there, he set his phone on the nightstand and listened, through a small audio bridge, to the sound of the 3 children breathing in their shared room. Mireille slept in the bedroom across the hall. She did not know the sound was playing. She did not know the husband she thought she was wearing down. Night by patient night was, in fact, the most ferociously faithful man she would ever encounter, and that every smile he gave her was a coin dropped into a debt she would soon be asked to pay in full. In the meantime, Junwoo worked. He spent the first 6 months consolidating the shipping permits. He bought the smaller companies through shell holdings, registered under the names of dead fishermen. He cultivated a young prosecutor named Han Ji-un, who had a reputation for incorruptibility, and a younger brother in medical school, whose tuition kept mysteriously paying itself. He acquired, through a series of carefully boring transactions, a controlling interest in the construction firm owned by Mireille's uncle. He arranged for the prosecutor general, Mireille's brother's patron, to be reassigned to a sleepy district near the eastern border through an entirely legal series of memos that nevertheless required a great deal of money to make uninteresting. By the end of the first year, the men who had once made Mireille untouchable were either retired, indebted, indicted, or quietly dead of natural causes. Mireille did not notice. She was busy being mistress of a house that had not yet finished mourning its real mistress. In the 18th month, Junwoo did something he had not done in 19 years. He went to a temple, not for religion, for arithmetic. He sat with an old monk who had once been a mathematician, and who now kept track of debts and forgivenesses on a small abacus made of cherry wood, and he asked the monk a single question. If a man has waited 2 years to give a woman what she is owed, has he waited too long, or not long enough? The monk moved one bead. The right time, he said, is the time when the children can witness it without being harmed. Junwoo bowed. He went home. That night, he wrote a letter to Sora. He told her the wisteria had bloomed for the second time. He told her the bird was still singing. He told her the staircase had been rebuilt in the same place, with the same marble, and that he had asked the carpenter to leave a faint imperfection in the 7th step, the one she had fallen on, so that he could feel it under his shoe every morning, and remember exactly what he was doing this for. He told her to come home. The day she came home was a Saturday in late May. The wisteria was at its peak, dripping purple along the garden wall. The staff had been told that an important guest was arriving, and that they should treat her with the highest courtesy, but had not been told her name. Mireille had been told that the family elders were coming for a luncheon. She had spent the morning in the dressing room, choosing a cream silk dress with a small pearl brooch, the one Junwoo had given her on their first anniversary as mistress of the house 6 months earlier, a brooch she did not know had once belonged to Sora's grandmother and had been pulled from a drawer specifically for this day. At 11:47, the gate opened. A black car came up the drive. Tae-hoon was driving. Junwoo stood at the top of the staircase in the foyer, exactly where he had stood the night the chandelier hummed, exactly where he had watched on the monitor as a woman tried to murder his family. He was wearing the suit he had been married in. The lapels still sat the way Sora liked. Mireille came down from the east wing, smiling. "Darling," she said. "Who is?" The door opened. A small girl came in first. Hanul. 2 years old, in a yellow dress, holding a stuffed rabbit that Junwoo had bought her on his second visit. Behind her came Barum in a small navy suit, his hair stubbornly refusing to lie flat, exactly like his father's at that age. And then, holding her mother's hand, came Bora. Quiet, watchful, the smallest of the three, whose dark eyes lifted to the staircase and found Mireille's face with a directness that stopped the woman's breath in her throat. Then Sora stepped through the door. She was wearing a pale gray dress. Not the same one, a new one, but the same color. Her hair was longer now, and there was silver at her temples. And she held herself the way women hold themselves when they have raised 3 children alone on an island and have come home not to ask for anything, but to take back what was taken. Her wedding ring was on her finger again. The chain around her neck was empty. The brooch fell from Mireille's hand. It hit the marble with a small, bright sound. "Sora," Mireille whispered. Her face had gone the color of old paper. You're dead?" Sora said. Her voice was soft. It was the softness that frightened Mireille most. "Yes, for 2 years. I've been very dead. I've been dead in a house with mandarin trees, and a garden full of perilla, and 3 children who learned to walk on stones smoothed by fishermen. I've been dead, Mireille. Have you been alive?" Mireille's eyes flicked to Junwoo at the top of the stairs. He was not smiling. He was not frowning. He was simply watching, with the patient stillness of a man who had been watching her, in one form or another, for 730 days. "Junwoo," Mireille said, her voice cracked. "Junwoo, please." "Bora," Junwoo said quietly, not to Mireille. He spoke to the smallest of the 3 children, the one with the watchful eyes. "Do you remember what your mother told you about this house?" The little girl looked up. She did not flinch. She had her mother's steadiness. "She said," Bora said in the small, clear voice of a child who has been rehearsed only in the truth, "that a bad lady pushed her down the stairs, and that we have to look at her face. So we know." The foyer was so quiet that the wisteria outside could be heard shifting in the breeze. Mireille took a step back. Her heel caught on the edge of the rug. For a single, terrible second, it seemed she might fall. Junwoo did not move to catch her. Neither did Sora. The three children simply watched, the way children watch weather. Mirai did not fall. She steadied herself against the banister. The same banister Sora had held 2 years earlier, with a glass of warm barley tea in her hand. "What do you want?" Mirai whispered. "I wanted you to see them," Sora said. "All three. Alive. Walking. Mine. I wanted you to see the faces of the children you tried to kill before any of the rest of it happens." "The rest of it?" "The footage," Junwoo said, descending the stairs slowly, 1 step at a time. His shoes made a soft sound on the marble. On the 7th step, the imperfect one, he paused, just for a breath, and Sora's eyes lifted to his and held. "There is footage. There has always been footage. Your hand, her back, the glass, the fall. Your face afterward when you thought no one was watching. It has been with my lawyer for 2 years, with the prosecutor for 3 weeks, with a judge since Tuesday." Mirai's lips moved without sound. "Your uncle is no longer your uncle," Junwoo continued, in the same quiet voice he used to order tea. "Your brother is no longer in the prosecutor's office. Your patron is in a small district office near the eastern border, where the internet is slow. You have no one to call, Mirai. I gave you 2 years to feel safe, so that, on this day, you would understand exactly how unsafe you have always been. Mirai's voice finally returned, ragged. "You let me sleep across the hall from you. You let me wear her brooch. I let you wear a debt," he said. "Today, I'm collecting it." 2 men in plain dark suits stepped through the front door behind Sora. They did not raise their voices. They did not need to. One of them held a folded warrant. The other held a pair of soft handcuffs, the kind used for people the cameras would later film. Mirai did not run. There was nowhere to run. The estate she had spent 2 years redecorating had never, for 1 second, been hers. As they led her out, Mirai turned back once at the door. "Junwoo," she said, and there was something almost human in her voice now, the small, bewildered cry of a person who had genuinely believed she was loved. "Did you ever, even once?" He looked at her. He let her see, finally, what had been behind his teeth for 2 years. "No," he said, "not for 1 breath." The door closed. The foyer held its silence for a moment longer. Then Hanul, the oldest of the 3 by 4 minutes, tugged at her mother's sleeve and pointed up at the chandelier, which had been freshly cleaned that morning, every crystal wiped by hand. "Iyama," she said. "Pretty?" Sora knelt down. She gathered all 3 of them at once, her arms barely able to hold the whole circle of them, and she pressed her face into Bora's hair, and Baram's shoulder, and Hanul's small warm cheek, and she breathed. She had not breathed properly, she realized, in 2 years. Junwoo came down the rest of the stairs. He did not speak. He sat on the bottom step, beside his family, and he reached out and laid one hand, gently, against the 7th step, the imperfect one, the one he had walked over every morning for 730 days. Then he reached out his other hand, and Sora took it without looking, the way she had taken it in a bookstore in Jeonju 19 years ago, on a rainy afternoon when neither of them had any of this yet. Outside in the garden, the wisteria moved in the breeze. The bird that sang every dawn, indifferent to the family inside, was singing again, though it was not yet dawn. It seemed to have decided on its own that today was worth a song out of season. In the quiet that followed, little Bora, the watchful one, the one who had survived the staircase before she was born, placed her small hand over her father's, on the 7th step, and patted it twice, the way her mother had patted Junwoo's hand in a hospital wing 2 years earlier, in a language only the 2 of them would ever fully understand. The chandelier above them caught the late morning light, and held it and let it fall in 3 small, perfect circles on the marble floor, 1 for each child, exactly where the glass had broken on a different night, in a different life that no longer belonged to anyone in that room.